Well, that's our housekeeping for tonight, and I want to get into mechanical oddities. So here we go. John Clark is all so here we'll start with this one. This is this is a brass float that was inside a float bowl of an SU carburetor, an H-type carburetor, and it would not come out of the float bowl. It had become one with the inside, and it took a lot of struggle to get that thing out of the out of the carburetor. So, so just pull from this box here. All right, so here we go. Here's a wire, what used to be a wire wheel, right? And you can see where it's been cut up the middle with a torch so that it will come off the hub. A comment about wire wheels: if you push your car, or if you're driving it and you listen to it and you hear a creaking sound, that's loose spokes. If you as the wheel goes around, um, you have loose spokes. That probably was what was going on here, or at least it was a flat tire, and someone had not removed this hub, this wire wheel from the hub for way too long, or certainly had not put any lubrication in it. So we had to cut the thing off with a torch.
This is a great opportunity. Check what's good for people who
Here's a here's an MGB brake rotor with the other half here. Okay, so this is stuff that we've seen at the shop. It's come in, the thing failed. How could it fail? It's pretty thick, but weird things absolutely do happen. Here's a water pump. This came out of an MG 1100 that we serviced. A woman had bought it new. She lived in Indianapolis, and she decided to revive it after 30 years of disuse. In the inside of it, I'm using my mute all button here. There we go. Here, the inside of this is all garbaged up from all years and years and years. So it testimony to being careful when you're storing your car for a long time. I don't know which Mr. Smith this was, but hello. This is a front cover, and the rear axle had come apart during driving and sliced up the inside cover. So, and it's written on here. See, it says hole. So it's not supposed to be a hole there. Oh, and here we have Jim Pastor. Jim Pastor maybe started this off last time. He had a TR3 painted. It was beautiful. It was just great. Putting it all back together down to the final thing, go to put the windscreen on, doesn't even come close to fitting. Why not? And they fiddle. Well, somebody put a lot of Bondo in that TR3, so you can see the edge of this beautiful black paint on it. I mean, the car was absolutely stunning. It just wasn't shaped correctly. So here's this weird piece of Bondo that you can see with it. It says stratified, having to do with what color Bondo they were using at the time. So always make sure at the body shop that all that kind of stuff fits before you paint it. Make sure it make. I mean, this thing had been dented so much. Jim, are you on tonight?
Yeah, I'm here.
Yeah, okay. So you bought that from sort of a project.
Yeah. It was the first TR3 I ever did. So I'm going to say I didn't know any better, but um,
Okay.
uh, yeah, it was done, painted. It was beautiful in the garage, but it needed to be put back together.
That's
And
all. All you have to do is put it back
I,
together, right?
I just had to put it back together I'm pretty good at. But yeah, once we fitted the windshield and stood behind the car and looked, it just it was odd, and
Did you
it
buy
turned
it from
out.
a potter?
And now, well, I will tell you, not to bore everyone with the story, but eventually, a couple years ago, John, you know that I took it out for a test drive, and the hood flew up over the windshield and smashed everything. After I had that cowl fixed, by the way, that piece came from under the cowl underneath the windshield, but the windshield got damaged again, and I took it to the guy who does all my work, and we found that the entire car was literally packed with Bondo. And the guy who does my work's pretty good. He had five-gallon buckets of dust in his garage. He shoveled out for the car. I have photos of it. You guys wouldn't believe it. So a sculptor actually did the car. It was nobody knew it for years. No one knew that the whole car was sculpted with a half inch to an inch of. It was amazing. It was amazing. It was art. That's all I can say. It was the sculptor did it, man. It was unbelievable. But now it's down to bare metal, redone, and we're all good to go.
Wonderful. So just as a corollary to that, in our paint room where we painted everything from leaf springs to engines to all kinds of stuff, here's a real stratified piece out of our paint room off the paint table. Is this piece just kept building and building and building, but it looks like something you'd see in a um, archaeological magazine or something. This is a rear hub from an MGB banjo diff. It's not an MGA because these holes are half inch. You can see that. Otherwise, they should be 7/16. And there's an oil seal that fits inside here, which is difficult to fit. Difficult. What you don't do is put it on the press and begin pressing because then this guy here all collapses. He collapses on the inside when you do it on a press. So you have to use you have to use a large socket. You have to do it by hand. You can't do it like this. Or if you want to do it like this, you support it out here on the sides and then press the seal in, but not against this piece here. Maybe that's something that happened to some of you. I don't know. This is my own. This is not complete, but this is my own oil pump out of my own MGA, and you can see that the impeller has broke. Um, this is the rotor. I think this is the impeller. So you can see that those pieces have absolutely fractured. It should look like this, with these with the rotor and vane um, set up like this. But those other ones had actually cracked. And this one, I don't know if you can see the damage. Almost, you can see the damage on the rotor here from all the crap that was in the oil and getting picked up. So maybe that's what happened with mine. It picked up something or other and just tried to compress it and it wouldn't compress. There Therefore it broke.
John, can I interrupt with a question?
Go.
On the pump that failed, what was the symptom that told you that failed?
Zero.
Zero
I
oil
just
pressure.
I had the sump off for some other reason.
Oh, so you were
Take
driving
it
the
down.
car with that failed lobe,
Yes. Yeah. I mean, you wouldn't even know.
but
I
there was
mean,
nothing anomalous about the oil pressure?
no, no,
Oh,
oil pressure is just fine, you
oh,
know.
interesting.
Yeah. Yep. So here's somebody who had a midget carburetor, uh, eight H2, and the engine must have fallen over because you can see on the back end here that there's been a lot of welding. See all that Healy arcing there on the back? So maybe the engine had fallen over and it busted the flange. So this thing got welded on. It didn't get welded on straight. So almost straight, but not totally straight. You can see this end drops off here. The late Eric Jones, Riverside Motors, in down by Columbus, Ohio, because I had this great selection of used and broken parts, sent me this brake rotor from a midget. No rotor on it at all. And the note, which Eric, he called himself Rex Cars. Um, the driver swore she'd never heard any grinding noise from the brakes, but this thing is like right down to paper thin, paper thin.
A whole lot less unsprung weight.
So here's a piston with a nice midget 1500 piston. And I don't have the rest of this to go with it to show. I used to when it was in the cabinet, but the gal came in and she's got car's running horribly, and I checked the compression zero in one cylinder. That's this cylinder. And so I said, well, obviously, one of the valves has gone bad. So we take the head off, and the valves are just fine. It was just a hole in the piston. So then we replaced the piston, just a single piston, rings. And I tried to get it timed, and it would run crappy, but the best, it was still running crappy, way before and way retarded, and I could not figure out why. And it turned out it had a lumination ignition system in it with a 6-cylinder rotor on a 4-cylinder engine. So the spark on these guys was coming either really early or really late. And really early is probably what caused this problem. Some stuff is just hard to figure out. This is the extension for an MGA. So you can slide your steering wheel. You can slide the steering wheel in and out of the inner column. But what would cause it to have this massive bend in it? Look at that. Look at that bend in there. What in the world? How this is a big piece of metal. How in the world could this piece bend so incredibly? I mean, you know what? Someone's thrown against the steering wheel and it can't move at the same time that the car's hit really hard in front. I don't know. I don't know the story. Then there's mistakes that you make yourself. Here's the oil. Let's move that light in a little closer here. See if that. Yeah. Okay. Thank you. Take the cover off that. Maybe get some more light here. Anyway, this is the outlet that's on the rear of not an MGB or MGA engine. It's off a Nash Metropolitan engine. It's a little shorter. So when you put this on an MGB engine, or in this case an MGA engine, and put the gland nut on top of it and the tube, it's too short and stuff's sitting on an angle, and it leaked oil. Now that we'd spend a lot of money, the customer paid us a lot of money for a really nice restoration, and I don't know how this thing got onto the engine, but it did. And so Evan Lyle, he was one of the guys at Roush Racing. Anyway, it cost me $400 to have the tow truck go down and get his car, come back, and put the correct outlet on the back of the engine. So sometimes this stuff is your own fault. Here's some pretty catastrophic damage. from Mark Flug's MGB engine. Obviously, the ring is supposed to run all the way around, but sometimes when the ring fails and all those hot gases get in there, and the aluminum is so very soft and melts at a much lower temperature, of course, than steel. And hooked to this is his front engine seal, which I don't know if you can see the cracking in it or not. The light here is so crummy. I didn't even think about the light, but anyway, it's a front engine seal, and it's all hard and cracked. But that looks a lot nicer than this piston, which came apart at speed. Okay, so this is not our only example of a piston, deep dish piston from an 18V engine, apparently, because it's got three rings, two compression, one oil control. So this is a pretty unusual failure to have the whole bottom part of the piston separated. Huh, this. This is an MGA gear shift lever. So remember that to pull an MGA engine and gearbox out of the car, you need to remove the remote control housing. If you don't, you can take a hacksaw and just cut the gear lever off. What? So anyway, the guy came back in and wanted another gear lever, and I asked him what had happened, and so he brought me this and told me what he had mistakenly done. This is a I wish the light was better here. This is the Planet gear assembly out of a big Healy. And you don't need to be an engineer to know that something is terribly wrong with all this stuff in here that's all, oh my gosh, it was just, we had to get the torch out, get the hammers out to get this whole thing apart and salvage the few pieces that were still good. Oh, here's another piston that maybe this is not this is not the bottom end of the piston that we already showed. This is the bottom end of yet another piston. Can't begin to tell you which piston it is. Very light, but this thing came apart, so it's an unusual thing to have happen. This is the swing assembly on the side of a T-type uh, T-type sump, and you can see that the hole is elongated here. This is not unusual at all. It's only a quarter-inch clevis pin that goes through there, but this hole should be round. It's not. It's all elliptical. So this used to be part of a midget half shaft, disc wheel half shaft, and the axle shaft is welded to this flange on the outside. But after some competition use or hard use, they have been known to snap here. Sometimes they snap down inside the differential, but this guy snapped right out on the end. Here we got. The outside of it where the weld used to be. This is why I don't like roller release bearings. So here's the throwout bearing, and here are the rollers, and you can see that it was all ground up. It was plastic. Don't know what caused the failure, but this is one of the reasons that wasn't keen on roller throwout bearings because of this one and others that I'd seen like it. This one's hard to tell, but the teeth on this is a single gear on the front of the crankshaft on an 18V engine. because it's only got one chain, and these teeth are about as worn as you can get and still have the chain stuck on. This guy is the inside of a brake servo, 1975 through 1980, North American spec cars. Um, and this guy is probably, because of our lighting, it's going to be hard to see, but there's a fail. You can see this crack line right up in here, and that was allowing air to bleed through. So we used to rebuild a lot of these in place. There was a kit. You could buy it, came with all the bits and pieces. Now you can't buy the kits anymore. This is a steering arm. This is from Dr. Hack's. Imagine having the name Dr. Hack, Hack. This is from Dr. Hack's TF. He fell asleep and hit an embankment, something or other in uh, no, no, no. This is the steering arm. This is the steering arm off of TC. I don't know if you can see, yeah, you can see it's been brazed here. I had the picture of this guy up on the constant contact mailer that I sent. So we did a complete lubrication. This thing was all painted black. You'd never know that it had failed and it had broken before. Someone brazed it back together. You're steering, they brazed it back together. So we get the car all done. We send it down to Detroit from Grand Rapids. The tow truck gal calls us and says, "Oh, Ricky said something went wrong with the steering when he's dropping it off, so he's bringing it back." Well, it's a good thing the steering went bad when it was on the tow truck before it got to the customer, because if this thing snapped while you were driving, you'd have no steering whatsoever. Oh my gosh. Here's a castellated nut missing a castle. I don't know why. Just bizarre stuff that you find while you're in the field. The throwout bearing rides up against the thrust plate. This is the thrust plate, and the backside of it is catches all the fingers from the diaphragm on an MGB clutch. So this thing had failed. This is part of the pressure plate. This had failed completely and popped off while everything was in place. So going back to Eric Jones's brake rotor, where the gal said, "I never heard anything." This is a brake. This is a brake pad. This is a brake pad, and the brake pad is showing it's been ground all the way through, and the piston from the caliper is pushed all the way through the brake pad. You can see the tab here. See, it's an MGB brake pad. It's pushed all the way through, and so the piston itself was hitting the brake rotor. Unbelievable. You just wonder what in the world. So here's a push rod. Some of these actually have names on them. Pete Geiger, 75 MGB. When you press on the brake, you only press it just a little ways. When you press the clutch, there's a lot more movement, down to the floor and up, down to the floor and up. So that clevis pin and fork on the master cylinder gets more wear than the brake does. So here you can see the how much this pin is moving. It's almost burst out of the top. And of course the pin is very, very worn too. You can see, you maybe can't see, the light here is so horrible. How did I know that this wasn't going to work out with the lighting? But anyway, you can see that there's great big grooves run around on the outside. So
We can see it okay.
okay, all right. Oh, here's a good one. Um, Glued to this card, it says Mark Stidham. This guy had an MGA. We built a whole engine for him, 16, maybe a 1622, and put the whole thing together. And I didn't do the work. One of my guys did, and the tachometer didn't work. So you take the cable off the back of the tach. It's not spinning. Take the cable off the tach drive on the back of the camshaft. That's not spinning. Take the housing out. And I realized when I take the housing out that someone had made the housing. It was like an engine block from, I don't know, a Leyland tractor or some other BMC vehicle, and it didn't have a tach drive, and they had hogged out a hole, and then tried to get the angle correct, missed because the other end of this, which is supposed to poke this side and drive the tach cable, broke off. We just on the engine. The engine was a wonderful engine. It ran great. And I called Mark and I said, "Hey, this is what happened. This is why the tach isn't working. But if you'll allow me, we'll put an electric tach in it from a 64 through 66 through 67 MGB. Looks almost exactly the same. It says Smith's, doesn't say Jaeger, it says Smith's." He said, "Yeah, that's fine." So anyway, thank you, Mark. Thank you, Mark Smith. Anyway, that's from some homemade stuff. This is a second gear synchro, brass synchro from a early MGB or an MGA engine or a gearbox. And this guy on the side that is so peaked here is supposed to look like a roof line. And this thing has been all worn away. This is as bad. This is as bad as the ears get on a synchro ring. And when they're this bad, the synchro doesn't work. So this is as bad as they get. I have no idea what those are. Here's a brake master cylinder spring, and you can on the inside of it. There's a I probably can't get it out, but there's a little white guy inside there, and he's supposed to push against the against the inside of the cup, the main cup, but the spring broke down in, and so it pushed some of the spring up inside. There's no end to the bizarrenesses. Don't know what that is. Here we got, while we're looking for something else, we got yet another broken piston. Lots of broken pistons. So the front suspension on a T-type MGA MGB uses a bushing and steel-backed copper on the inside, bronze on the inside, and then a distance tube through it. And over a period of time, especially from not maintaining the lubrication correctly, they will wear out. And this thing is worn out so badly that it actually got a hole cut in it. So this is like the bottom of an MGB kingpin. Actually, this one says Kurt Wienhorst, Valparaiso, Indiana, 67 MGB GT. That's what this says. So that's from the bottom of an MGB, and it's from a lack of lubrication. Some stuff is very, very distinctly noted. This is Dean Wheeler, and the you can't tell very easily, but the end of the shoe is bent. So anytime the shoe was going to move up, it always moved on an angle and caught. So it was a bent brake shoe. Very, very unusual. Oh, this is an interesting guy. This is a micro switch which is fitted only to the very earliest 77 MGBs at the front of the gearbox. So for the TCSA switch to work, the transmission controlled spark advance to work, It's you've got to have it's an electrical solenoid, and it works only in fourth gear. So coming up to 77, they hadn't yet perfected or got around to making the remote control have a switch that would only go continuous in fourth gear. Instead, they had this switch, which went continuous when you were in um, first or third, because that's the rail that it was attached to, and then the micro switch was pushed, and then that was wired in series with a lockout switch on 3 and 4. So if you were in third um, gear or fourth gear, then the switches would both be in series, and they'd both be closed, and the TCSA switch would work. But this is only the very earliest of the federal spec models. For whatever reason, someone decided that they wanted to put shims underneath the oil pump. I don't know, beats me. But here are these nice shims that go underneath the oil pump. A lot of homemade stuff. People do things to correct a problem without addressing the problem themselves. Or perhaps it was someone who wanted to get the gears exactly aligned in some race car engine or something. I have no idea, but it's pretty unusual. The timing chain tensioner on the front of the engine holds the slack side of the chain so it doesn't vibrate. The as you're looking at the engine, the right-hand side is always taut because the crankshaft is always pulling the camshaft. But on the other side, there's a tensioner to take up the slack so it doesn't whip around. And if you mount it incorrectly, then this is what you get, and you can see that this thing's got a really it was sitting on an angle, and only one part of the chain was hitting it. So this is a wonderful example of faulty um, assembly. Oh, here we got a steering wheel nut that hasn't, of course, you can't see it from here, but it hasn't got any threads on the inside of it. So we've got another one a lot like this. Boy, of all the of all the threads on the car that you want to make sure, it's like wheels and steering wheels. And here we've got more examples of um, broken rotors from the this one's good, but the this guy obviously is not. But you already saw one of those. All right. So this was once upon a time a throw-up bearing. Okay, but it got so thin that everything got eaten away on it. All the carbon got eaten away on the top, and then it fractured. Lot of bad stuff. Oh, look at this. Look at this. So this is some sort of powder coating, and it's a metallic suction chamber. I mean, if you're into it and you want to make your engine look different, you know, here we've got this unusual coating on the outside of an SU suction chamber. This is a clutch disc, okay, and this side is isn't so bad, isn't so bad, but this side the fabric's just gone, so there's uh, tough. It's a real tough real used clutch disc from an MGB. It's because it's got 23 splines in the middle. So we know it for B. So here is a float. And I don't know why this is in my box of used and broken parts, unless you look at the inside of it, and it's all grody. I mean, if you were going to rebuild these, you could take it apart and sandblast it and tumble it and have it come up nice. But I can't think of any other reason why that would be in there. Here's a lever, these long brass levers on an MGA that pull the choke up and down, and they pivot, and you pull up on it, and it pulls the jet down over here. But it only works if the if the 3/16 clevis pins can actually fit inside it. This one's actually worn all the way through. Brand new starter switch, T-type, TD, TF, MGA, Spridget, brand new, doesn't work. And there's a little tiny, tiny gold sticker on it that says made in, can you read that?
Taiwan.
Made in Taiwan.
Wait.
Wait.
Something of China.
Republic of China. Yeah. So here we've got a ground cable from a midget. I know because it's short and it's got the tab on the end. So he looks okay down here, but up on this end, look at that. It had come apart, and someone decided that if they took a hose clamp and clamped the wires tightly against the terminal here, that it might pass enough current. Probably did. I probably just changed it because it bugged me. John Reeves. John Reeves from North Carolina. It says left rear, very noisy. Made 2006. But all it is a rear bearing. It hasn't got anything that's obviously wrong with it that I can show you here on the screen. But it's very, very unusual to have a rear wheel bearing go bad. The rear wheel bearing on a TD and TF is the same as a 1980 MGB. So the TD TF rear axles have got the same outer wheel bearing as the all the Salisbury or GT diffs do on the MGBs and MGCs. So this guy, Mark Dorenzi, was driving an MGZA Magnet across the country. And he called me from like Iowa, and he goes, "Can you change a front wheel bearing on my ZA?" And I said, "Well, yeah, sure." He says, "I'm in Iowa now." I said, "Iowa? What's the matter with it?" He says, "It's noisy." I said, "Well, I do a lot of test drives, and I think I'd have a hard time diagnosing a bad wheel bearing on a Z type on anything. To be able to dial it in and say exactly that was the problem." And he said, "Well, I've been driving from California and I've been thinking about it." And he says, that's probably what's wrong." And of course, that was what was wrong. The cage had failed, and there was no, that this is his bad wheel bearing. So absolutely, he was right on that. Oh yeah, this is Dave Dave's timing gear on his MGA. So here we got. I can't get this thing back together. Don't know how it goes exactly, but anyway, he was at a stop sign and he accelerated, and the distributor was so tight that it put so much drag on the cam that it snapped the chain. It snapped the chain, and then the crank gear pulled it all the way around and jammed it all up underneath. I've got the front cover too. I don't know where it is. We didn't see it today. The front cover's got a great big hole in it, and at the same time that it did that, of course, it snapped. It snapped the timing gear on the camshaft. Is this interesting at all? Is it fun to look at this stuff or not? Or
It is.
shall I go over to chat? So this is probably the timing gear from the same one that had that tensioner on it. You can see that the chain was rubbing on the outside of this, and the teeth. For those of us who build these engines, well, look at the difference in the teeth. This is what a good tooth should look like. Okay, and these are the teeth on here. So it almost run the teeth all the way off. Sometimes even a part that you get from the factory is faulty. Again, I don't know if you can see this, but this is just a thermostat housing for a late Model B, like I don't know, 68 through 76 or something. And anyway, it's got this note in here. I don't know whether you can see my finger up in there. Yeah, I don't think you can see it. But anyway, there's a hole. There's a hole right there, and it's the guy comes in and he's like leaking antifreeze out of the thermostat thing. It's like, well, we'll snug it up a little bit, and you fiddle, 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 and it turns out there's actually a hole in this itself, just a manufacturing flaw.
Hey, John, I
Yeah,
put up Carol's knockoff from her MGA for my picture.
that goes in this in that goes in this display. Absolutely, it does. How that came apart, who knows? Here's a rear wheel bearing, the ones that I said never go bad. But look at that, the outer part of the bearing is snapped away. Here's another one. This one's got actually a tag on it that says Mark Smith, right rear TD. Uh, and this is October of '06. So this rear wheel bearing is pretty garbaged up too. Very unusual. They hardly ever, I mean, they just hardly ever go bad.
Do you think they were running with no gear
I
oil in
I
there?
don't
Or
I
any
don't
idea?
know. I don't know. It's hard to say. I don't remember. Um, in the differential, you've got differential and pinion wheels, normally called the spider gears, to allow the wheels to go at different speeds when you're going around a corner or something. And they're just spur gears, they're just crappy old spur gears. But it's important to have all the teeth on there. And of course, this one doesn't. So if you're just going down the road, you wouldn't notice anything. But if you're going around a corner, you get a tremendous noise. So this one says Doug Butcher, MGA Coupe, 102203. So this is the fuel line. This must be the fuel line that goes into the fuel pump. So when you go to slacken off these British Standard fittings on the end, it happened to me today. I was working on a rear brake line on John Clark's MGB. And I go to move the nut and I see the line moves too. Well, the deal is do something before you tighten up bend the line so badly that you can't fix it. So Although it's tough here because today I used heat. Heat is your friend, but not on a fuel system. So do we have one of these bearings that looks good? Same bearing? Yeah, that's it. That'll do. So this is just a taper bearing. This is just a taper bearing from MGB um, inner wheel bearing. They never go bad, but here's one which is toast. It's the cage is broken and the bearings have fallen out of it. But there are also taper bearings in the differential, but they should not look like this. This is about as bad as it gets. This thing and we used a torch. You can see the torch where we cut the hole in it up here to relieve the tension on the pinion. We were able to get the pinion out. We put a used bearing in, worked just fine. So Neil Friends was uh, Lear. Um, Lear was working on a steam car in the 70s, I think. And Neil was one of the head engineers on that. He had some midgets, and he brought me his engine and said, "Would you rebuild my engine?" I said, "Sure." Rebuild the engine. He comes back, he put it back in the car and everything, and he goes, "Geez, it's still smoking real bad." So I'm real sad. I'll do what I can. And so he brought me the engine again, and we went through it again, honed it again, got new rings, everything, put it together, made sure that the ventilation system was all open, everything, puts it in the car. It's still smoking. And we do it again. And I said, "Neil, don't take the engine out of the car, bring me the whole car. Something else is going on." Well, Neil had made his own gaskets um, between the carburetor and the air cleaner. There's no hole here to allow air to get underneath the air piston to lift the air piston. Therefore, the air piston was sitting too low. Therefore, it was running enormously rich. And the smoke that he saw was probably unburned gasoline, not oil. So it was just a lesson in to me as late as 2002 that you can do bench work for somebody, but if they hook it up wrong, and that ended up costing me. I got what I said, $2,500 question mark. These two gaskets cost me $2,500
Oh, boy.
rebuilding that engine over and over and over. On the front suspension, I already showed that front taper bearing. There's a inner bearing and an outer bearing, and they're supposed to be separated by 2 or 3 thousandths. That's all. And you control that by the shims that are on the front end. MGA twin cams, deluxes, MGCs, and MGBs have this unusual system. Almost everybody else, you tighten up the nut until jams up and then back it off to the next bolt hole and you're home free. Not in MGB. You got a distance piece and all this stuff. But sometimes that distance piece, you can see the end of that is just chowed up, just beat. And it's like, what is going on here? How could that even happen? But it can. It has. Uh-oh. It's an XK120. Oops. I have to admit I worked on some other stuff. But the doors on MGA coupes, this is not unlike an MGA coupe, have these little tiny star wheels, and the teeth go bad, and oh my gosh, getting those things to work is just a terror. So here's a float bowl lid, but somebody has I don't want to wiggle that too much. It's probably already fatigued. But that's an inlet or outlet from the carburetor, and fuels a lot of fuel is going to spill out of that hole there. See, this says Bob Kinsel cracked and soldered tech seminar 22900. So throttle shafts on this must probably off an MGA, something like that. The throttle shafts are 5/16 brass, and they wear. But somebody here, and it's hard to tell because of the shading, but they'd filled in the wear with solder, chucked them up in a drill or a lathe, smoothed them out, and I can see the color of the solder from here, but my lighting is just too bad it just isn't showing up here. But oh my gosh, the stuff you see. Here's somebody that found an MGA, um, MGA brass on the bottom side and decided to braze something. Maybe part of it broke. A lot of times people are at home in the you're working on the engine or something that turns over. I mean, it falls over, and that's a lot of weight and crush, so it's you can get in a lot of trouble. And I just want to show again these elongated holes on the brass. It doesn't matter if the elongated hole is here. It really doesn't matter because you take up the slack just with the adjustment. But if it's a hole like that, it sure makes a difference. And this guy's this one's elongated too. So I want to thank John Clark for handing me all these parts. Lifters, there's no end. This is only one. I'm not going to show more than one lifter. Cam follower, it bobs up and down as the camshaft goes around, pushes the push rod, which in turn rocks the rocker, which in turn opens the valve. But it's getting beat up on the underside real badly, and you can see the pitting that's gone on here on the bottom of this. But anyone who's taken an engine apart has seen beat up stuff. Oh my gosh, this is my own front wheel bearing from my Deluxe. It's a JHT right front. So I had driven to Grapevine, Texas with my late wife. It was a long run, and we hit a huge thunderstorm. Water on the freeway, just unbelievable amount of water. Drove through it, drove it for about another year, and I was going home one day, and I'm listening and that noise isn't right. There's something wrong with the front wheel bearings. I couldn't describe it exactly as the outer wheel bearing like this guy with the ZA did. But anyway, all the cones here, the cones and the bearings had rusted. Rusted. I mean, they were full of grease. It was my own car. It's full of grease, but once that water gets in there, it's so hard to get it back out again.
Oh, man.
So we've got this here, but this is all one big package, and I think we'll pass on that because I don't know why that's even here. Here's another easy for me to say, timing chain tensioner that had seen had seen a lot of use. Oh my gosh, that chain had slipped across there for a long time. Really ate that thing up. I don't know why. Just beat up, beat up. So this is the housing for the automatic choke on the Stromberg carburetor. Lots of trouble, lots of people that just that's why those carburetors come off and Webers go on. Um, but when you do go to rebuild them, which you can, it's just like an SU, you just got to know what you're doing and so forth. On the end here, on the end, there's a 5/8 freeze plug. But if you can't find a 5/8 freeze plug, and you take a penny and you chuck it up on the lathe and you turn it down to exactly 5/8, and it fits right in there. Hmm. Oh, here's a float out of a Stromberg carburetor. Um, so this is the float assembly, and you can see that there are rivets that hold the plastic floats to the metal. But look at this, it's all loose because there's only one over on this side. There's only one rivet left. The other two rivets broke off. I don't know what this is. It obviously meant something at some time, but it's not uncommon to see wood screws used in odd places. So I don't know how that wood screw goes with this. I have got no background on this. I can't remember this one at all, but it obviously had something. Oh, look at this. This is so sad. Here's another Stromberg. So somebody was yanking on the hose way, way, way too hard or using pliers and broke off the inlet or outlet there. Um,
Yep.
Sad. So in an HIF carburetor, there are several different types of HIFs used in several different applications, more than several. So you can have problems with the jets for two reasons. One, the hole on the inside up here at the top into which the needle fits on our MGBs should be 90 thousandths, but on the Volvos is 100 thousandths. The jets look exactly the same. I took a call sometime in the past 2 months where a guy had 100 thousandths jets in his HIFs. Who know, they just mistakenly come through the supply chain. This one was different. This one, the jet was too long. Lori Lindrup's car from September of 2000. So this jet was too long, so you could never get the HIF rich enough. And if you can't get an HIF rich enough, something's terribly wrong because the only problem with HIFs is that they run too rich. So here's a U joint. Somebody had a U joint up. Was that Judd? So here you can
I'll put it
see.
up.
Yep, you can see on this one that there's some you can see maybe on the one I'm trying to show you, maybe you can see the needle. In any case, it looks like Judd's in that the it's no longer round but elliptical almost from the wear. You have to move it around a lot to show all this stuff.
And the four prongs became pointed.
Yeah. Yep. I don't know why this is here, but this is a bearing from inside a water pump. Don't know why it's here, but this is the bearing on the inside. Water pumps hardly ever um, fail to pump water. Oh, remember that the midget half shaft, and I said sometimes it was the other end of the half shaft that failed. So that would be this end, the end that goes into the differential. These are cut. these teeth are cut in here and by not by design, but in the way that they're cut doesn't make them as strong as involute splines like on an MGA or MGB rear axle or the involute splines on a first motion shaft on a late model, well, 68, no, any MGB clutch disc. So anyway, this is what happens. So on a T-type, this also happens. T-types have got fewer teeth, and campaigners with T-types will carry an extra half shaft with a bearing on it and a long rod to knock this out of the inside of the differential on the side of the road. This is the only MGB outer wheel bearing that you'll ever see snapped off. It's the only one I've ever seen snapped off. I don't do race cars. Weird stuff happens with race cars. But this guy, you can't tell how blue he is, but he was so hot. He was so hot because of lack of lubrication that the stub axle snapped off inside. Okay. So this is the only time that I've ever seen this. And when I took it apart, there was still grease on the inner wheel bearing, MGB or deluxe or twin cam or MGC. But there was grease, even though this got so dry, it got so hot, it heated up so much that it broke off. There was still grease in the inner wheel bearing. So that's why during the complete lubrication, it's not necessary to take the whole front suspension apart and grease the inner wheel bearing. If you just grease the outer one, somehow the grease gets back to the inner one. This is the reason that I believe that. Midget rack and pinions, midgets, Spridgets, Bug-Eye Sprites, midget 1500s. Sometimes the rack and pinion will fill with water because the boots are bad. So here we've got one that's all rusted up, just horribly, all rusted. Oh my gosh, this is Rosma. The date on that is March of 2000. And sometimes the steering gets so stiff. I mean, you're pulling that thing at 20, 30 pounds of torque to get the steering wheel to turn. Oh, sure. We'll do these. So I don't want to outdo Judd here, but here are some gaskets that have failed during use. I'm going to hand these back to you. This is Terry Bettinger's between looks like 3 and 4. Here's one that blew out the front. This is very, very odd to have that happen. So if the surface of the head is flat, and if the surface of the block is flat and there's no dirt or grease or crap on it, then there shouldn't be a problem. Here's a T-type. Remember, you can get a T-type gasket in backwards. You got the two holes here, and there's no holes up on this end. So if you turn it around and put it on the engine backwards, it warms up real fast and never begins to cool down. This is a midget gasket. And we got the same kind of problem here between 1 and 2. Look at that little area there. It just isn't much. It isn't much, but if it's compressed correctly, it'll be okay. So the overdrive gearbox works from hydraulic pressure. So everybody says, oh, electric overdrive. Well, the switch turns it on and off the solenoid. And there's a pump in there that's constantly pumping. It only moves a quarter of an inch, hardly that, just a little tiny, tiny bit. And but but it'll make, well, the blow off is 450 pounds per square inch. That's a lot of pressure. It's a lot of pressure. And if something is hooked up wrong on the inside, then the cover on the bottom of the solenoid is no longer flat, but becomes um, becomes concave the way I'm looking at it, or convex the way you're looking at it. Yeah, it really bends the shit out of them. Yep. So
I've got a little overdrive one if you're interested.
so the this is a Stromberg carburetor disc, I think. Boy, it's huge. I think that's a Stromberg disc. Anyway, it's supposed to have a spring-loaded valve down here at the bottom that opens up under high manifold depression when you're decelerating. It slows deceleration, keeps you from shutting the throttle disc all the way off unless it comes apart. And then it's like running with the throttle wide open. So this is June of '03, Bob Wills Stromberg carburetor running with a throttle wide open because that spring-loaded piece had fallen off. The HIF carburetors use a rotary choke to enrich in the mixture, unlike all the earlier carburetors, SU carburetors, which drop the jet. So there's a valve that's supposed to have the piece that I'm holding here, and this little guy is supposed to be on the end of him, but he fell off. So as I said before, anything that goes bad with an HIF carburetor makes it run rich. This made it run rich. Very difficult to have them. What is this? Oh, oops. So here we have a good spider gear, I think. It's the pinion wheel. Okay. And he's in good shape, but this one is not. So he's in bits and pieces here. He broke all apart. So then this is the front of a first motion shaft, or the first gear end of a lay gear, but that's all there is to it. You know, imagine being an archaeologist and trying to figure out how to construct the rest of the gear just from this. This cost me. This is why myself, I do not recommend roller rockers. Look what happened here. It broke. This roller rocker broke. And as a result, the engine danced apart. It says it cost me $400. And just from the damage of putting this on. And why does it cost me $400? Because the customer comes to me and says, I want roller rockers. So you put the roller rockers on, and then one of them breaks. I can't blame the customer. And you certainly can't blame the supplier, so who eats it? Me. So here we got the bottom of an HIF carburetor. Oh, you can see what the problem is right now, huh?
Oh,
See the hole in the bottom there.
yeah. How did that happen?
So just corrosion. There's a lot of corrosion on the inside here,
Weird.
So there's a little piece of yellow paint pencil just to show you the hole. Oh, this one's good. Here's a spring clamp, a spring clip, right, for holding a hose on, right? And the note says, Would you believe this was holding my steering wheel on? It came off by the S curve. So in Grand Rapids, we've got a 70 mile an hour, well, it should be 55 mile an hour expressway, 6 lanes through a pretty tight S. And of all the of all the places to have a problem with your steering, anyway, that's the note. Would you believe this is all that was holding on his steering wheel until, of course, it wasn't. So I've got a valve here that is interesting. So you can see this guy. So he was obviously open when the piston, maybe one of those pistons that came apart, one of those pistons came up and met it and made it bend so horribly. Then we've got distributor drive gears. I think this one. So this is a normal. This is a normal distributor drive gear. We got a gear on the bottom. We've got the offset dog in the front to take the distributor. And if the distributor is got a lot of resistance to turn, it's going to sharpen the teeth. And you probably can't see how sharp those teeth are. But my gosh, I think I could cut my finger open with how sharp they are. Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. But if the engine comes apart at speed, this can happen to it. So it's no longer rotating. Oh, Randy Blau, yeah, this had a carburetor fire, and the inside of his Stromberg collapsed. I
Yeah,
have
right.
no idea what this is. So yeah, put it
That
back.
looks like the piece that holds the rubber diaphragm
Yeah,
of the
yep,
Stromberg.
yep. Here's a push rod. Okay, okay. The push rod, the end of it broke off. That's pretty unusual to have a push rod that gets awful like that. Here's a T-type. A T-type, you can tell from the end here that only T-types had that. And here at the bottom, that's failed. These are push rods. So we've got several push rods here that have had problems. These are really unusual problems. Hardly ever does a push rod go bad. You can always check a push rod rolling it on a flat surface, or better on a mirror, to see if it flexes. This guy looks okay. Maybe he was just for display. This one says, this one says, uh, this one, just a moment, not this one. That's what the note says. Not this one. Okay, apparently it's another one. So anyway, we've got here's another particular problem with T-types. In the end of the push rod gets loose. And man, it goes ticky, 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 and you cannot get rid of that tick. You're trying to figure out what the devil's going on. So we used to just braze them, but you can also buy new push rods. Here's the push rod that is bent. This is good. This says this is a guy who's a past member of our local club, Bill Weir, and he was getting a strange noise inside his alternator. So I took it off, took it apart, and removed the alternator spring. So this is it's a carburetor spring that somehow fell down inside his alternator.
Holy,
This is a drain plug from a gearbox. And when you look down inside here, you can tell how much wear there's been. A lot here. You know, that's usually pretty hollow and pretty clear. You can buy magnetic ones that the stuff sticks to, but normally it just eventually finds its way into the bottom of the plug here.
Hmm.
So here we've got rockers. So let's see, a normal rocker. Well, this one's been all polished. Look at this. Someone spent some time with this, polished them all off. Why? So the oil wouldn't stick to him. Look at that. It's almost shiny. But the face of it, you can see the face of it is nice and smooth. It's got a radius to it because as it rocks, it's pushing down on the valve, but it doesn't push up and down. It rolls against it, and because it's rolling against it, you can get some wear like this. So on the end of the rocker, you can have that surfaced. I don't know how thick the case hardening is, but I know on T-types we have those welded and then surfaced again. But the MGB ones are so common that you just go ahead and find a good used one. Black,
John, can you hit the mute all button?
sure.
Thanks.
Okay. All right, so here's another throwout bearing. Okay, so drive until it fails. Normally a clutch is good for 50,000 miles. That's the MGB clutch, just normal use, round town use, primary transportation kind of use. Obviously, if you get in your MGB and drive from here to California back and forth and back and forth, hit a million miles on it without having to change the clutch. Like Bob and Gloria probably don't change their clutch very much, but when you're in town and you're hitting the pedal all the time, then the release bearing wears out. So keep your foot off the clutch. Start at neutral, idle at neutral, stoplight, stop sign, stop start traffic, put it in neutral, let it freewheel. On the bottom of the distributor is a drive dog, and it's offset. The teeth are offset, so you can't get it in 180 degrees. But these teeth are supposed to be solid. And these teeth are, no idea how these, maybe the distributor wasn't locked in as deeply as it should have been, but it's very unusual to see wear like this on the bottom of a distributor dog. This is Stephanie Fry's MGA. I knew she was in Idaho. We did a restoration on her car, got it all done, I don't know, we used to put maybe 300-400 miles on them before we sent them back to the owner. So if something happened, it happened to us and not to them. And this is what happened to her. You can see the valve here has got a great big slit in it from where it had failed, and then it broke off. So what a mess. What a terrible, terrible mess. This is the carbon that goes inside a throwout bearing without the rest of the throwout bearing. This is like number 6 carbon. You can write on the side of a cardboard box with it and make, well, I haven't got good enough paper here, but anyway, this is the carbon thrust is very light. So on the side of a T-type engine, there is a capillary line that goes from the bottom main oil gallery up to the cylinder head. And the trick is to restrict that so that you don't get too much oil going up to the head. No problem with the oil going up to the head. The problem is that it drops the oil in the main oil gallery. So we'll tell you to put maybe a 60 thousandths Holley jet into that top bolt to restrict the oil going into it. But of course, you can always just go to the hardware store and get a little T, and then you can feather the amount of oil that you're trying to get up to the top. Lots of people have made SU parts under license, some more expensive, some not. Always buy the factory stuff. So here we've got pieces of rubber in a nylon end here. I don't know where these came out of. I can't remember. There's a firm in New Zealand that was making pumps under license. And so this might have been sourced. These two with a big thick rubber on them may have been sourced in Australia or someplace. Okay, all right. Here we got some interesting stuff. So I had a policewoman out of Chicago with an MGB. She got exasperated. She said, I can't get my car worked on anywhere in Chicago. I'm going to drive it up to you. I said, hey, no problem. We'll do it. So we did it. Everything's fine. She calls and she says, hey, I'm gonna be up today, pick up the car. I take it out for the last test run to make sure that it's okay, because if it's going to fail, I want it to fail on me and not on the customer. And it broke a valve spring. It just never happens. Never happens. But it was really easy to sort out, and we got it back in the shop and compressed the valve, used compressed air, got the spring off, put another spring on. She picked up the car and drove away. So there are success stories there. The the bolts which hold the flywheel into the MGB look like this. This is a five main bolt, holds the flywheel on. Well, little did I know that it wasn't turned from one piece. This is serrated on the inside. This is actually the head. This is the head of one of those bolts. And remember that TC steering arm that I showed you before that was brazed? That's the other part of it that was brazed and broke off. Oh, I'm so happy that that happened. Not on my watch. Let's see, what else do we have here? So this is an interesting piece. Interesting piece. So, on the inside of the MGB air cleaners, there's a spacer about that long, right, that wraps around the 5/16 bolt. Well, if you pull the bolt out all the way out, that'll drop out of place. And in the right combinations of circumstances, it can jiggle through the carburetor while the throttle disc is open, getting by the needle somehow or other, and lodge itself in the intake manifold and sit in there and shake for tens of thousands of miles. So this is the spacer. You can see the gap in it, the gap. This is the spacer that held the MGB air cleaner top and bottom cans apart. What else have I got here? And then we'll come to
They were lucky that stayed in the manifold and didn't go all the way through.
well, it couldn't have got through the valve. It's just, the thing's 3/8 of an inch in diameter to start with. But yes, yeah.
Take a look.
If you'd waited another 10,000 miles or something, yeah, who knows? So Stromberg carburetors, the needles are spring loaded. If I hold the needle here and push this guy up, he pops back, right? He pops back because there's a spring. There's a spring up in here. Oh, sure there is. Come on, Mr. Spring. There's Mr. Spring, and he goes in the barrel. And there's supposed to be where this little a hole is on the side. There it is. That's supposed to be folded in to hold the needle down. But if that fails, then the needle hops up inside the barrel and no matter what you do, adjusting the barrel up and down with the adjuster tool, there's no way that it's going to change the position of the needle, and the needle's pulled all the way out of the jet, so it runs really, really rich. We found that more than one time. Let me just find out any more little bits and pieces that are in here. More throwout bearings, more reasons to keep your foot off the clutch. This is a bolt here, which held the rear plate, the rear engine bearing plate on a Midget 1500. While the guy was driving, it had backed out just far enough that it touched the flywheel, which then grabbed it and spun it out a little bit more. And when he drove it into the shop, it was absolutely screaming with the metal against metal. This used to be just a flat-headed bolt, but now it's all garbaged up. Oh, let's see what else. Let me look for a couple more little bits and pieces here that might be fun. Here's a valve, or what's left of a valve. This is kind of like Richard Dreyfuss reaching in the refrigerator in Jaws and pulling out the gal in the in that little plastic box. So no, that was a shark. Anyway, yeah, these are valves that broke off during operation and then fell into the cylinder and were hammered 10,000 times by the piston. What else I got here? Little bits of anything. Ah, here's the end of a spark plug wire. Okay, real nice, but it's all corroded in here. And I can't get enough light on it to show you, but it's all corroded. So on old-fashioned wires, ignition wires, they're solid wires right from the cap to the spark plug. Easy schmeezy, right? But then starting with the MGA, they put resistor ends on, and then the MGBs, they put resistor wires on. And the resistor wires are okay until they start to fail, and then the carbon filament begins to burn out, starts arcing, sparking, and keeps the spark keeps getting longer and longer inside the spark plug wire until you finally don't have enough spark out here at the end to run the spark plug. So the reason that we're here is because Jim Pastor said, "Hey, why don't you do the mechanical oddities and so forth?" And then Alan Batchelder said, "Oh, you've got to show," and this is it. This is my coup de grace here. So here we go. This is the lead picture on my constant contact. It's almost as good. Where's Doug Pelton's picture? I don't know. It's either as good or better than Doug Pelton's exhaust off of TC here, which I showed right at the very beginning. This is 1975 through 1980 brake master cylinder reservoir. So here you've got the two inlets that go into the inside of the brake master cylinder. And then here at the top, you can unscrew this and pour the brake fluid in on top. So this came to us from below the Mason-Dixon line, but it proves that necessity is the mother of invention. So maybe at the time, the guy couldn't find a master cylinder reservoir. He didn't want to buy a brand new one, so he went to Ace Hardware and invested $3.26, including tax, and made this guy, and then put a spring on it, put a spring on it because you wrap that all the way around the master cylinder to hold it fixed and in place. So this is my best one for homemade stuff. And there are like 4 more boxes of parts, and we only I gotta stop here because it's like, oh my God, I have talk all day. So anyway, those are my comments. What picture did you have, Terry? You got a picture up there or not?
Oh, I had that over that knockoff from Carol's car.
Okay. All right.
Here's the throw bearing we drove across the country.
Okay, there you
Yeah.
go.
Yeah. Yeah.
Drove across country. You don't need a clutch.
You don't need a clutch. You don't need a clutch. That is a fact. But it's real nice to have one. But that's one of the reasons I don't like those roller bearings is I've seen I don't know how many I've seen burn up, but yeah, yeah.
So pulled the piston out of my car to do the rings, and this is what happened. It it came apart in several pieces,
Oh my gosh. Okay.
but the cylinder walls were okay. Surprise, surprise.
Very nice. Very nice.
There other stuff, but there's no time for it.
All right. So tonight I want to just a moment here. I got all these, they change this Zoom all the time. So I'm wanting to go down to the chat section now and answer chat questions, unless anyone's got any comments about any of the stuff that I showed. But it's getting late. It's
I
10
got
minutes
I
to
got a
9.
quick overdrive one if you're interested.
What do you got?
My friend here in the local club has an MGB GT. It was leaking a little bit on the overdrive, but it was working perfectly. Leaks are normal. He's going to change the filter gasket on it. He pulls the cover off of it, and there's something hanging down in it. He starts pulling, an entire shop rag comes out of the housing,
I love it.
and he puts it back together with the new gasket, and it still worked perfectly.
Very cool. Very cool. So that was my coup de grace and that one, but we forgot Colonel Randolph. So Colonel Randolph bought a Clipper Blue MGTD in Tokyo in 1952 as it came off the dock. I had that car in the shop at the same time that I had William Morris's um, black 1952 TD in the shop, which he'd bought new in Germany. He was an armor officer. Matter of fact, he's passed away. He claimed he was the oldest GI to receive a Purple Heart in Vietnam. His unit was called up. Army Reserve unit was called up. Anyway, I had Colonel Randolph's car in the shop because he'd already been to the shop any number of times. He'd come to the tech seminars, he'd come to the rebuild seminars. So when he came to the technical seminar, I show everybody how to do a U joint, and honestly, I did one in 4.5 minutes. I'm not sure I could do that today, but I could probably do it within 10, which is a lot less time than most everybody spends. I got the technique, I got a couple little homemade tools, makes it go real easily. But part of it is you crank down on the vise, you take your hammer and hit the vise to jar the cups together. So Colonel Randolph took my advice and he's working on his grandfather's antique vise. And the next year he brought it up to me, his broken vise. He said, "Well, you can beat on yours, but apparently I can't beat on this one." So this is Colonel Randolph's, whose son was also a colonel. Anyway, here's his grandfather's vise, completely wrecked from following my advice on how to change U joints. Sorry, that was an aside. Okay, So we got some chat section here. I'm gonna go real fast here. I got a friend that wants a flat toe is 74 midget to Sandusky. Just a moment here. How do I collapse this? Come on. No, no, I'm not going to end the meeting for all. Oh, come on, baby. Anyway, wants a flat toe to Sandusky with a prop shaft hooked up. Depends on how long he's towing it. Make sure there's lots of oil in there because when the gearbox is turning, the main shaft is turning. The first motion shaft isn't, nor is the lay shaft, and together those all cause the oil to whip around inside the gearbox. No problem with the differential, but inside the gearbox, it doesn't get as well lubricated as it does when you're driving. So you have to be careful. Um, every company has an employee whose sole purpose is to hide everything and make it inconvenient. Yeah, yep. Update means to hide everything. Yeah. Um, Eric, you'd hear Richard Hammond's workshop on my end. Okay, maybe that's why Marty came in there. Best thermostat temperature for 73 BGT, 190? Yes. Best source, Napa. If you can't get a 190, get a 185 or 195. Right in there. South, Georgia, that kind of South Florida, a lot of those guys run without thermostats. I don't think that's a good idea, but man, it's a lot of them used to come up from the South with no thermostat at all. George, fresh engine, about 1,000 miles, compression 1234 is 162, but on number 3 is 135. Fresh engine, 1,000 miles. This isn't right. This isn't right. So George, you want to readjust the valve, torque the head again, readjust the valves again, and check that compression. Plugs look good. Anyway, I think George, you've tried to call me a couple of times last couple of days. So call me tomorrow. I'll talk to you more about it.
Real quick, John.
Yeah.
Real quick. My concern is, do you think we might have had a broken ring putting the engine together?
So if you got bad compression and you can't sort it out and that's no good here, then eventually the head comes off, right?
Right.
And at that point, you turn the head upside down and fill each of the chambers with gasoline. And one of them leaks out, one of them doesn't. If they don't, then that's all right. At the same time, you move all the pistons to the same height in the engine and introduce the same amount of gasoline into each cylinder. Should never use gasoline for doing something like this, but it's right there. It's handy. It's available. It's dangerous stuff. But anyway, put about that much gasoline in each cylinder and then come back in 10 minutes and look. And if number 3 is down, something's wrong with the rings.
Yep. Okay. Thanks, John.
Hey, thank you. Mr. Dowler, MGB was running fine until intermittent slight rough idle with a drop of 250 RPM would go away and run fine for a while. The roughness had come back. The roughness and drop in RPM is now constant. Check the spark plug leads. And boy, it's anyway, rough running. Number 3 made no difference when he pulled the spark plug leads off. So I'm asking you to do a compression check and see what's going on here, because when you change the leads 3 to 1, 1 back to 3, something like that, you wouldn't change those two, but when you change them back, something's going on, or change the plugs around. Did a compression test, all show 140, 150. My microphone doesn't work, so I'll have to answer any further questions on this chat. Call me tomorrow. That's that. I can't, if your compression is consistent and changing the spark plug, change the spark plugs around. Try that. Try that and just see what's going on.
What about the
Um,
distributor cap?
sure, absolutely, absolutely. That could be going to ground. I have I didn't bring the distributor cap to show you because the light's bad enough you wouldn't have been able to see the carbon track on it. But yeah, no spark would come out of it. So you should get a spark about that long out of the end of the spark plug wire. And if it's in the side of boot and you can't see it, then you can stuff a Phillips screwdriver up inside the wire, hold that Phillips screwdriver close to the dipstick, something like that, while it's running or spinning it over, and you should get a nice spark. So yeah, could be the cap. Absolutely. Good call. Thank you. All right, San Diego British Car Day, Coronado Island. Oh, that's beautiful there. Absolutely. Um, um, Chapman, this is from Dan, says, Judd, your image looks like Route 2 in North Adams, Massachusetts. Can this be true? I don't think so. I don't think Judd's been north of the Mason-Dixon line.
Stationed in Maine.
Okay, very cool. Oh, that's a nice picture. That's a A-arm. That's as bad as they get. I got one that tore out. I only had one in my whole experience that tore out. So,
I was
this,
going to show you it's the other part.
yeah, yeah, the half-inch bolt, which is now yeah, a quarter of an inch. Yep, yep. That's off your T-type, isn't it? Because you got brass.
Not mine, thank you. But a friend's. We did it in my shop.
Yep. Yeah, it's got a brass trunnion. So that's it. That makes it T-type, and the threads on there are BSF. I can tell that from here too. So yeah, absolutely a T-type. So, all right, iPhone this Sunday, July 12th, Mad Dogs and Englishmen at the Gilmore Car Museum in Richland, Michigan, which is Kalamazoo, Michigan. So, Robert Reed, John, they use paint piled up like that and make knife handles out of them.
Here's a picture of one if you can see it.
Oh yeah. Oh my God. That is so cool. That is really nice. It's pixelated a little bit because of your green screen, but
Yeah.
yeah, that is cool. Absolutely. Well, now I got something I can use that for. So, um, all right. So Chris says, how do you reconnect the electrical connector on a starter motor, which operates from the ignition switch, white with red wire? The connector is loose and it cannot solder it. Well, maybe you don't have to. Maybe it can be soldered, but if it has to have an electrical connection, you can solder it. You just got to get it clean, which means you got to take the starter motor out. You got to take the solenoid off the starter motor. You got to take the bakelite cap off the end of the solenoid. You got to clean everything out and either hit it with a wire brush, which is tough, or a sandblast or something like that, and get it really clean. And then in using sand around anything mechanical is dangerous, 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 but it's a really good way of getting stuff clean. So anyway, you get all the sand out of there and you put it all back together and you solder it just easy schmeezy.
Yeah, well, I tried soldering it and in the car. It didn't work. It
No,
just
no, no, it won't. No, you got to take, what's that, MGB?
it's the motor's it's a 69 GT, but the motor's out of a 78
Sure,
MGB.
but it's just, yeah, same thing. It's probably less hassle to just buy a new solenoid. You know what I mean?
I
Really.
think I'll do that.
Okay. You still got to take the starter motor out though. So, all right.
Thank you.
Okay, doke. Rob Kuhn says 25 miles on a new overhaul. That's not enough miles to make a decision on what's going on. Oil soot in the end of the tailpipe. Spark plugs carboned up. Compression check around 80 pounds on all four cylinders. No, that can't be 80. It wouldn't run. Something's wrong with it. That's weird. But that's too early to make a call. You want to get 500 miles on the engine, and the best way to get the miles on the engine is to get out on the expressway and drive. And if you think it's going to use a lot of oil, carry oil with you. You know, if it's fouling up the plugs, then gap them at 35,000, carry an extra set of plugs. But get 500 miles on the car and then decide, because you always take the cheapest, easiest, simplest way out. So
Okay.
Skip, go ahead. Rob, you sent me a note about that.
Yeah, I did. There was also on your doing the test on your number 47, you get about three-quarters of the way through watching it, and all of a sudden you start doing tap dance for about the next 10 minutes.
I don't know. Maybe somebody hacked that. That's number 47 or
Number
46.
47.
Okay.
47.
Marty, jot that one down and we'll take a look at it. If we have to do it again, we will. So, Skip K, John, regarding Sandusky, are there spots for trailers if we trail our MGB from Seattle? Absolutely, there are. And you can contact I don't know where on the website, but yes, there's a huge, last count, there were 60 or 80, 60 trailers. Okay. A lot of pre-war cars are coming and stuff. But anyway, yes, please get a trailer and bring your MGB to Seattle. But then how would I see you in Portland? Oh my gosh. Anyway, Skip, thank you very much. Phil Barrage, I want to upgrade the headlights on my 7040B to LEDs. Buy Sylvania. That's what I tell you right now. Buy Sylvania. There's all kinds of kits available on Amazon. They make all kinds of really incredible suggestions and comments. You have to leave? Are you here? You gonna go? So thank you. Thank you. We're saying goodbye to John Clark. There he goes. Good night.
Bye, John.
John.
Bye. There we go.
guys.
Right. Thanks a lot, John. So anyway, there's a lot of claims made on LED lighting. A lot of them are spurious. It's worse, criminal. Buy good lights. And Sylvania makes really good lights. And of course, you don't need any relays or anything like that, because they take so much less current. So
We have LED lights everywhere in the car, but we do need a relay because the cruise won't work with the LED lights. But a 5-pin relay makes it work great, and the lights are wonderful.
thank you. Pat Garrity says, I strongly recommend you add relays when going to H4s, but current draw on LEDs is low. Beware of cheap LED headlights. Hey, Pat, you can work here too. I trust Abingdon Spares lamps for good optics. So, yeah. Blair Weiss was on here 2 years ago, 3 years ago, talking about LED lights and all the stuff that goes with it. And he had all these wonderful ads off the internet that he had that, 10,000 candle power and all kinds of, anyway.